I've been thinking of late about when life gets us at crossroads, Now, crossroads presupposes that you have been walking a main path, then along the way that path has to have a number of directions, and you have to certainly choose one. You have to make a decision to follow one. Now, what happens when life throws us at crossroads? What happens to, life might say, for example, for the young persons out there, they are getting out of school, probably finishing in Kenya 844 system, you're getting out there, or after high school, you have to choose the path that you want to walk in your tertiary education, or after graduation, and you're asking the basic question, what's next for me? And sometimes crossroads comes when probably lose our most important persons in our lives, when our dependency systems die. What happens when life throws us at crossroads, man?
Now, first off, you've ever realized that sometimes, and in fact most times, when this crossroad event happens, you are normally at your worst. It never happens when you're at your best, in my opinion. I don't know
Nice
if your experience, I don't know if your experience is different, but my experience is the crossroad event never gets you at your best. And I think there is a positive in that, in the sense that by the very fact that it's a crossroad presenting itself at your worst, that means you still got options, all right?
Yeah.
So that's the positive in it. But then again, it's a hell of confusion whenever you get yourself at that point. And most people succumb in it. Most people make the wrong choices. A few really get to analyze the situation and get the best way forward. But I think it all depends on, first of all, the value system you have, right?
Yeah.
What you've always wanted to do. In the sense that if you're confused about a presentation of various elements in the same field, then it's just right and just to make a number of considerations here and there. But then that will come with a lot of analysis, personal analysis. It will come with a lot of consultations from people, with people who matter to you. You need to know the stakeholders of your life. Not everybody matters, and not everybody should have a say, but there are those who can direct you, those who really root out for you. Those are the people who, in case this decision goes south, they'll still be there to hold you, right?
Sure.
So a lot of consultation is done. Then at the end, it's you to pull the trigger. But it's a confusing phase. I have to agree.
For sure. I think you're pointing out good steps towards that. What happens when crossroads, consultations is key. I think it's one time when, apart from just having honest conversations with yourself, trying to discern what you really need, is also time to drop in the destiny guides. You pull in a number of persons here and there. Consultation is key, though the world seems to be presenting to us situations where we are having trust issues in other persons, and those malicious kind of thought patterns. It's also true that the same world is presenting us with amazing kind of persons who still believe in what we are doing, people who have walked these paths before us, and they have ways of pointing us to those directions that they deem to be fitting. And I think is one time you really need such kind of a support system. And I'm just thinking, I think before life throws us at such points, there's these preparations, that have been happening to your life. You have been having probably remote preparations. Growing up, you're trying to build a conviction, trying to build a value system, a belief system. It comes very handy in such a time. So remote preparation, approximate preparations, as you get of age, and then immediate preparations. If you are making those transitions from one point to another,
It becomes easy.
it becomes easier. So you will really want to also do much searching in the preparations that you have been making. Try to trace patterns that seems to be of common essences, of sameness, and try to put so much trust in that which probably works, what has been working for you, what is working for you, and and that those spots that you want to put trust in, because it is from them that you seemingly something greater can come out of it. And this leads me to think of this guy. I listened to Jordan Peterson, and he was a keynote speaker in one of the graduation ceremony of some university, and the guy pointed to those students while talking about the issue of crossroads, what next for them. And he pointed out it's one time that they realize in such times, and even in adversity times, that the meaningfulness of their life, or what they have designed to be the meaning of their life, should come very handy. When you have defined it, you have gotten it right, you have been thinking about it, you have given your life a meaning, a shape, a conviction, a system, that comes very handy when you're at crossroads, because it is easier, it is easier when you are in a number of alternatives and you say, I think this is what I want, So you really need a meaningful, deep meaning of life when you're at crossroads. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that thought. But also I'd want to add what I got from this beautiful book by Bishop T.D. Jakes. It's entitled So. It's a very, very interesting book. It's a book written to startup entrepreneurs. So the idea is how to lift from the ground and so in your business, in your life, in whatever aspect it is. And so at some point he says that we get a series of confusion of whether we should we should put all our energies in one thing. What if that is not the thing, right?
Yeah.
And his answer is, you should just give it your all. If it turns out to be the thing, well and good. But if it turns out not to be the thing, then it definitely will be the thing that will lead you to the thing. So the idea here is to give 100% in everything, so that by that time you're at crossroads, when you're weighing your options, it's a little bit easier because you have 100% given everywhere, and you can easily route any direction, and it will still be to your advantage. So don't limit yourself in matters of delivery, right? So if you're speaking about matters academics, give it your all. If you're speaking about matters social capital, give it your all, so that by the time you're at that crossroad, it's easier for you to pick an option. Of course, other factors coming in, what you've talked about, developing a sense of life and purpose, developing a value system and all that. Once you put all those factors in place, then you can easily root out one. But then I also think it's important for us to identify, to believe in the universe, to believe in God, in the sense that a number of times when we, hindsight is always beautiful. I'm yet to find somebody who has been through a storm, through chaos, and looks back and with frustration and agitation. It's always in that chaos I was being led here. So I feel it's important to believe in what life is doing for you, what God is doing for you, what the universe is doing for you, that it is for your own good. Remember, St. Paul says in the book of Romans that all things work for good to those who
trust in the Lord.
Yes, exactly. So even in the chaos of those crossroads, it is important to do your part, but also believe that however ugly it is leading to something. And it might take a while, it might take a week, it might take a month, it might take a year, it might take a decade. But someday, when you throw back a gaze, you'll really appreciate the beauty.
For sure. Now, it's good we have already dropped in the idea of God, and that's a game changer already. When God is involved in the story, there's a higher power involved in the story. It changes the entire narrative, and maybe everything should be centered around that. And that gives it a sense of meaning. What God does, I think it gives meaning to he holds the center, yes, but he also gives meaning to that which is at the periphery. And it leads me to, it's good you have quoted Romans, that is Romans 8:28, everything works together for good for those who trust in the Lord and those who work according to his purpose. But I also remember in the stories in the Bible, the Gospels presents us with a Jesus who, before making those bold decisions, Jesus has some time alone. He thinks about, probably prays about, the Bible records, he prays about it. And then the following day we hear he has chosen the 12 after praying. And maybe it is also an action plan that we can make in our own lives,
Yeah.
We involve God, we have some time, think about it, present the case scenario as it is, honest conversations with yourself, with God, and allow it the grip of his grace to work in this.
You know what I love about these ancient practices of the ancient monks, and there's actually a book by Anselm Gruen, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. It's entitled Heaven Begins Within You. So the basic idea is normally Christianity and faith and theology, we get an ideal, then we try to reach there. But Anselm brings a game changer that no, that thing begins from the self, right? So he quotes all these ancient fathers' wisdom, these desert fathers and the monks. And one thing I appreciated about it is that the reason we didn't have a lot of what you're having today, mental breakdowns, therapy sessions and all that, it's because these guys who are having chaos and confusions in their lives and heads, they used to approach the gurus, those monks in the desert on the mountain, and the guy, the old sage there, without any training of clinical psychology, will really help this guy, and he'll come to terms. All right. So Anselm says something very interesting there, that there is a way, a prayer. And when I talk about prayer, I'm not talking about the vocal prayer that we say in the morning when we wake up, before we eat and before we sleep. I'm talking about meditative, contemplative prayer, right? So there is a way he fuses that with the self-introspection, and now he links that to analytical psychology and clinical psychology. In this sense, if you take, let's say, and I really appreciate the Carmelites for doing that, right? If you take 2 hours to pray, meditatively, contemplatively, you'll realize that you'll have to fuse what people call the divine way of doing it and the human way of doing it. And so by the end of those 2 hours, you'll have met God, and you'll also have met yourself within those 2 hours. So back to what you're saying, Jesus, before making any major decision, took some time off to pray, and it wasn't 2 minutes. The gospel records the whole night, right? And so it is in this night, this prolonged period, that you meet both God and yourself, because it's no longer vocal prayer. You recite, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be the name, God help me, thank you, then you go make the decision. No, it's you getting back to yourself, inviting the higher power to be with you in that consultation with the self and the divine. Then whatever comes out of that place is just beautiful.
Sure. Clarity. Why whatever comes out of that is more of clarity also. And I think does that and does it. What happens when we get to such forms of meditations? Maybe the best we always do to ourselves is getting assurance. We assure ourselves of what we are doing, the conviction that this is possible. Sometimes when we don't give some time to look at it the hard way, with a loving gaze or a critical gaze into it, we feel like maybe it's not manageable. But when you retreat and you have it, displayed everywhere in front of you, and you reflect about it, you see the easiness in it as compared to when it is just chaotic and you haven't thought about it. I think mental clarity of all this is very important, and it can be attained best ways, as you have said, in prayer, meditation, and all that. Now, you mentioned something about the ancient sages, and they were meeting and they were helping guys to clear things, to have a sense of meaning and purpose. And probably most of us have read the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, Robin Sharma.
Unfortunately, I haven't read that book yet.
You have a long way to go.
No, I normally feel okay. I'm one person who doesn't sink into social pressure, and so by the time it was being popularized, you know, like I'm one of those few people who have not watched Game of Thrones, for instance. When everybody is hyping something up, I'm like,
Game of
okay,
Thrones,
this is not my thing. But I'll create time and read that book.
Please. Robin Sharma does an amazing piece of work.
But I've read his book entitled Who Will Cry When You Die. Yes, I've
Sure,
had that.
that's an amazing piece of work too. So Robin Sharma is a such good example of a guy who he breaks down. He narrates the story of a guy who breaks down in the middle of top of his career in the courtroom, being a lawyer, most trusted lawyer, a very rich, luxurious guy. He drops down, and what the guy decides to do after that, he goes to the mountains to seek the help of the sages. What the sages committed the guy to do after that is just go back to the world and now share this wisdom with the rest of the persons. Given free wisdom, he has a sense, he comes up very energetic, young guy, young at heart. You have heard of the statement, young at heart, and he do life again. And it's just a clear example of what happens when we have those moments. And maybe in our lives today we might not find the sages in the mountains, you know, in the desert, in caves, but we might want to create some more time for ourselves, you know, in those places where we need some mental clarity. Take some break off from normal busy schedules, you know, and think about yourself. You know, that day when you say today I'm thinking about me. I think it's one great thing that we ever do to ourselves. And it really makes lots of sense. So I think it's also one time we want to bring in the destiny guides, the destiny shepherds, you know, with consultations, as you had already pointed out. Crossroads become easier, you know. Now, what happens when we are about to cross the bridge, or when we are crossing that bridge? You know, we are crossroads, and now you are choosing it, and you're saying this is the way. You know.
Wow. I think the first dive is the hardest. You've heard of people saying, you know, that time when you're afraid to dive, that's the moment you're supposed to dive. But it's difficult as hell. And I think making that first step, you know, it comes with a lot of uncertainties. Like you've already consulted yourself, you've consulted God, you've consulted the board of trustees in your life, and all these, to a greater extent, agree that route A is what you're supposed to follow. Now, it is up to you to take that step and go to route A. Bridge. Now, that is difficult. Much more difficult than even seeking clarity of what you're supposed to do. I know of people who are at that level. They know clearly, this is no longer serving me. I'm better off the other side. They've thought about it for years, for months, for weeks. They have spoken to people about it. Their mentors, their spiritual directors, their destiny guides. They have prayed about it. And all these three parties agree to a greater extent that yes, this is the path. But now making that step is extremely difficult. Now, this is where you know, the video I shared in the morning. I think that's where this concept comes in. That sometimes you just need one person or a few people who will be able to tell you it is fine, it is okay, you're doing the right thing. And in case things go south, I'll be there with you and for you.
Fantastic.
That, I think that will make that step to be easy. Because without that, you just feel you're alone. You know you're making the right decision, but there is no strength to do it. But once you have somebody who is deep and passionate about your well-being, who is deep and passionate about your success, your growth, once you have them, you know, gesture to you that, whether it's in words, whether it's in actions, but you have a sense of a home in them, whereby you know this person is encouraging you to go there, and in case things go south, you're also not alone in that. Now the danger of that is of course saying that no, you know, you're supposed to make an independent decision and all that, but it's difficult.
Sure. I think we are getting there, man. We are crossing that bridge. Now we are diving.
All right.
But you know, you are diving when this time round with the knowledge and the conviction that still have some cushions, you know.
Yeah.
When you're crossing that bridge, you say, you know, when I won't manage to cross that bridge, I still can fall back and there is cushion somewhere waiting for me. You know, there is still soft spot. There's someone who still believes in it. You know, and even at times when we don't feel we are like ready, like, you know, I'm not ready for this. You know, and the person pushes you and say, you start, you know. If you go along the way you feel you're not yet ready, and you get back, it's also okay. We'll start again. You know, that conviction is something. And we know of destiny deliverers who basically do that, you know. Big up to persons like those who they hold your hand, they help you cross that bridge, they see you make those steps, you know. They see you make those steps. And maybe along the way they are trying to see if you can walk alone, you know, before they disengage, you know. But the disengagement does not mean the total separation, you know. It means a partial separation, trying to help you making that step, you know. But deep down within you will always know there are those steps that you really need to walk alone.
Yes.
You know, while you want to be really sure of their support, yes, you also along the way build the conviction, the trust and the belief that you can still make some steps alone. And every single day, I think the best we do to ourselves, every single day we make those steps when we are walking alone is we find some time, clap for ourselves, you know. We tell ourselves we can, you know. We tell ourselves we can, but still with the assurance of the other person to make the entire story even to be more different.
Yes.
The best we hope for is that also ourselves in this life, these days you have already mentioned of mental health, struggles that are there, depression, depressed cases that we are having these days. I think the best we also try to do is try make sure we are those hands, you know.
Sure.
We are those hands trying to help persons cross those bridges, make those steps. And it leads me to think of this guy, Robert Schuller. Robert Schuller wrote a book, maybe you've read it, Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do. Now, the best thing he ever did in that book, I think, in my own review of the book, is the guy keeps mentioning, but you really need to start, you know. It's very possible hard times might make us stuck down there, might make us not cross the bridge. But we only win, you know, tough people do. They win, yes, because they somehow, for some reason, started.
Yes.
So maybe starting is the big thing.
Yes.
And if you're starting will mean you get a little push from somewhere else, that is good. Now, what happens? What happens when you know there's no cushions for it? What happens when you know there's no soft spots? What happens when you know you don't have those persons who will hold your hand? Because it's a case scenario of many young persons out there who they know this life they're gonna face it them and you know alone. You know. So what happens?
Now, I think it's explained in the field of psychology. You know, this psychologist Erik Erikson, he comes up with the developmental stages of growth, right? And around that age is when someone is trying to establish his own identity and also to establish some sort of independence, right?
Yeah.
That's why you see a young man moving out of his father's house. He's not stable, but he just doesn't want to be there. He wants to find himself and also find some independence. But I feel once taken to the extreme, it's totally dangerous. Okay? And so the reason why you'll feel that you have no cushions is one, because maybe your relation with the people around you isn't that great. Two, you feel that you are, in quotes, a man, and you don't need somebody's consultation to make decisions and stuff, you know. Thirdly, you are not easily approachable. Because if you're easily approachable, people will always come and say, you know, they'll always want to connect with you and stuff. So that when you're going through such phases, it is now up to you to identify among this whole group of friends that I have, who is this that I can call a genuine support system.
Yeah.
Now, but then you have to understand that we are at an age where we are seeking identity and independence. But if that is pushed to the extreme, we lack a support system. Because yes, we've gained the independence, we've gained what we think is our identity. But then Crossroads are a manifestation of life telling you, no, this is not your identity, all right? So once life throws that at you, and you have independence, you have what you thought was your identity, without having a support system, it becomes really tough. So I think it's important to, first of all, distinguish between people you know, people who know you, and your friends. You know, that category of friends. You got acquaintances, you got your colleagues. It's important to know who is who in your life, right? Then from that, you establish who is your support system. And I think it's two-way, especially of people in the within the same wavelength. So if you're speaking about friends of mine who we have more or less the same mindset, more or less the same ambitions, more or less the same level of wealth, more or less the same level of exposure, it's important that we support each other. Because once I pull you out of that ditch, trust me, it is inevitable that when my turn comes, you'll do that for me.
Yeah.
So the support system for me, it's key.
It's key. Yeah.
If not, you will get into burnout, you'll get into depression, you'll get into, because what burnout is, and I like what Jim Carrey defines depression to be. He says depression is the avatar in your body telling you that I don't like this person anymore. So there's that Jeff inside you. One day wakes up and tells you, Jeff, I don't like this person you are anymore. I don't like you going to work anymore. I don't like you going to school anymore. I don't like you doing what you're doing anymore. And so if you don't have a support system to support you in that, that guy will win. And once he wins, once that guy within wins, you're speaking about suicide cases. You're speaking about burnout, you're speaking about. So for me, support system is very important.
Now maybe in a nutshell, as we clear this up, what will you say, point blanks, if we get ourselves to Crossroads? What will that be to you?
I'm not so sure I understood the question.
If we get ourselves to Crossroads, we are talking to young persons out there, or persons who get themselves to those crossroads, what will you say to them on a number of points for them?
Okay, first things first, have a sense of purpose, have a sense of what you want to do, right, with your life. Secondly, no one makes it out alive, and life is all about holding each other and leading each other home. For me, life is never a competition, it's never a race. It's a community playground whereby we're supposed to walk each other home. So my point here is, get people who support you, get people who mentor you, get people who understand you. And when you're on those crossroads, these are the people you have hard conversations with them. All right. Thirdly, there is that self-introspection I'm bringing in, which prayer is a very good ingredient in that. You invite God into the situation. Then always remember that however much all these people will help and support you, the first step is by you. They can't make it for you. All right. Then try the best you can to build a support system before these chaos come. Because you can't build a support system when you're in chaos. It's something you built before. You know? So relate well with mentors in the fields you're in. Relate well with your peers. Relate well with your parents. They always wish you well, in as much as some might argue otherwise. Relate well with the friends who wish you well. Relate well with them. there are those people who now built
Yeah.
the support system.
And I think does that and does it. And the best we hope for is that we find courage within our hearts to cross those bridges, you know, to
Yeah.
make those steps, to make those choices, and with conviction that it is possible. And we have seen guys who have won, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that should also be a point here that guys have win. People are doing it. People are winning even today, and maybe that's the route that will also win. You know.
Yes.
So we believe in that too. You know. So I think next time we'll keep the conversation going.
Sure. Thank you for being with us. If you like what you're doing, support us by subscribing and also share your thoughts in the comment section. Let's know what you think about this conversation. I know we are not giving gospel truth. It's open to discussion. It's open to conversation. So thank you so much, and you be blessed. We'll meet next time.